Hey everyone, welcome back to Blood, Guts, and Social Commentary. Today is going to be part 2 of Craig and I's look at horror movies that have never been released. We did digress a little bit on this one to talk more about studio issues.
Next up, we have 2007 film, The Poughkeepsie Tapes, and it deals supposedly on what is led to believe is a real murderer that's in Poughkeepsie, New York. The FBI at his house and found all these, some people would call them snuff tapes, and upon viewing them, the murder suspect happens to record all of his killings and when he got the victim up to the point where he kills them. And you never actually really see the killer in this film because he's always like wearing a mask or he's always off camera. And basically the movie just follows the investigation into these killings. The trailer was seen right before The Mist, when The Mist was coming out at that time, and some claimed poor festival reaction, others claimed awesome reaction, and in recent years, MGM has picked it up. Now, I find this very interesting that the Poughkeepsie Tapes, now this is a movie that I actually have, in source of a bootleg, and it really is a very good film, but, it's done by the Dodal brothers, who in recent years, they've done films like the remake of Wreck, and they also did Devil.
The one with the elevator?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And, I just find it interesting that this hasn't been picked up, and, it could very well be, the festival reaction why it hasn't picked up. But I would think that over the years, with the success the Dodal brothers have had, that, currently right now MGM would have enough faith to put the film onto DVD or Blu-ray.
This is a really weird one because this does happen where studios like MGM or Lionsgate will swoop in, pick something up doing well or getting a lot of buzz at festivals, and they just shelve it, never touch it again. Normally the shelving gets broken when director does something, and as Craig just said, like they did Devil. None of those breaking stellar films that did like astronomical business, they were pretty big films, so yeah. It's kind of weird that they wouldn't have released Poughkeepsie Tape because of that, because I remember in 2007 when this first started getting buzz, and 10 years later I still people raving about it. People still go on about how wonderful it is. There's a gif that goes around a lot with a girl with tape on her mouth and the guy kind of walking with a mask on the back of his head.
Walking backwards, like he's doing the spider walk.
Yeah, and she's like hyperventilating, and that gif goes around all the time. Like that's complete and utter like baseline creepy gif fodder. I see that everywhere, and it's from this movie. So it's like I don't understand why MGM, like maybe their rationale is since it has been bootlegged so heavily and it has been out, you can find it on YouTube. There was a point where it was on MySpace, and when I say MySpace, like a couple of years ago MySpace, because I don't know why. So their argument might be it's been bootlegged so heavily, but I think people really would love a proper edition of this.
Exactly, and even though I have a bootleg, I would immediately toss my bootleg away and buy a copy of this. And before we go on, I know we've gone on quite a bit, and I always talk about bootlegs. I just want to point out that I'm not there's a fine line with bootlegs, because people believe that, you buy bootlegs, you're supporting piracy and, all that jazz. And really, it's just, how do I want to put this? It's just, I don't support piracy, even though, I get bootlegs. It seems hypocritical, but it's not that,
Basically, it's from what I've always gathered about you and bootlegs, you only get a bootleg when getting a legal copy is impossible.
Exactly.
So in those instances, I can kind of understand that just for the sheer fact that the filmmaker's not making money either way.
Yeah.
Since this movie is totally shelved and they won't put it out, the bootleg isn't actually taking anything because there was nothing to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth.
No, that's something I can understand, and that's kind of what we were talking about last time with the gray territory of dead media, where a lot of people are like, well, I don't have a VCR and I don't want to pay $100 for this VHS, but in those instances, like, yeah, but you can still legally get that. Like, you might have to go back to an outdated technology, and you might have to pay through the nose, but you can still get a legal copy. The things we're talking about today, there is no copy, there is no way to get these in any reputable way.
Yeah. this wasn't meant to sidetrack our conversation, but I just wanted to make a point to say, I don't support that type of thing. But when it comes to stuff like this, a lot of the times there's no other way.
Exactly, because I know you know plenty of independent filmmakers. I know plenty of independent filmmakers. I know you and I have always both been about giving our money to horror whenever we can. It's just there's no way to give this our money.
Exactly. If anybody was curious to see this film, and like I said, it's a very good film, I won't tell anybody where to find one, but it's really not that hard to find.
It's one of those, if you want to look for this film, you do so of your own volition. We did not encourage or support you doing that.
Exactly.
I know I've had independent filmmakers on here, and it's one of those, I've hounded people, like I'm still hounding certain people for their movies, because sometimes it does become a licensing issue, even though I'm like, I know the director, I'm talking to the lead actor, I know the person that did the stunts, but sometimes that just happens. It becomes a big legal thing, because I think from a business standpoint, it's hard for people to understand, well, you got this movie, all of the money that was put into this movie, why don't you just release it? How much more could it cost? But when you think of pressing, when you think of promotion, when you think of all the things that have to go into actually getting a movie out, it is really expensive. So sometimes they can just be like, well, it's just not worth the cost of what we think we'll bring in, no matter how good the hype is. I don't see the Dodo Brothers trying to bury this movie, because we've seen that a couple of times with people that try and distance themselves from earlier roles. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Next Generation, when Renee Zellweger and who's the other guy in it? Matthew McConaughey both got big. They both tried to pretend like that wasn't there. Somebody pointed out to me the other day, the Solska sisters were in a Lucifer Valentine film, but it's not in their credits at all. And, Vince Vaughn wants to bury the Psycho remake. I think everybody wants to bury that, though.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard a single bit of love for that out of anybody's mouth, and that's a rarity. Normally you find one fan somewhere in the deep trenches of the horror community, and that is one I've never found a fan of. If you are a fan, please just shout it out, but no.
Yeah, don't be shy.
It's like, I really would love to hear a justification of that film, because I always kind of wanted to revisit it, but I can't find it. But yeah, sometimes the post-production is a lot more expensive than people realize. And while this film is only 10 years old, and it did have a found footage style, because I know last time in the price placement preservation outtakes episode that I cut together, we did talk about how expensive it is to restore things. This one, I don't know what the source material is, but I have a feeling, since it's only 10 years old, and it had that found footage-y feel, like a little bit of dirt and grain's fine. So theoretically, I wouldn't think you'd have to do that much restorative work, but I could be totally wrong on that without knowing the source material.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, what it was filmed on, but I mean, it still would just be nice that it would finally get a proper release, but, I guess time will tell. I mean, if MGM picked it up, and I would hate to think that it would be something like Warner Brothers did, and it just comes out like DVD-R film release or something like that, or like, made, burn on demand, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I can't remember if it's Warner Brothers or MGM, because I have a copy of Bad Ronald when they did.
That would be Warner Brothers.
Yeah, because I have a copy of Bad Ronald from them. And I mean, it's not a bad copy. I mean, you have to realize it's dated and they didn't do any restorative work. Like, plain as day, they didn't restore it. The cover art looked really cheap, and it looked like slightly nicer than I probably would have gotten from a bootlegger. Which, I mean, to be fair, there's some really nice fan-made bootlegs out there that puts real cover art to shame, but that's why people make their own, and they're not actually bootlegging anything, they're just designing their own covers. Yeah, I know people that have redone the covers for their entire collection, and it's just like, I can't even begin to imagine doing that. This concludes part 2 of Craig and I's look at horror movies that have never actually been released. If you like what you're hearing, please like, comment, subscribe. If you don't like what you're hearing, give me a comment, let me know. Next episode will be the 3rd and final installment. Thank you.